Yes! 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 Woo! Give yourself a round of applause. All right. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny when you change that state and you go back to your chair, it doesn't even feel the same. I got some people over here looking at me like, give me another chance. But isn't it funny in life you never get a second chance to make a first impression? You know, it's funny when we look at attitude today, we talk about how we transmit attitudes. They now say that 70% of our communication is nonverbal. When you leave and go back to the office, when you walk in, you're going to transmit some type of attitude. I mean, when I ran up here and took the platform, I looked out and made eye contact, and some of you transmitted your attitude. Dr. Metcalf in Atlanta, Georgia, teaches nonverbal communication, and he says 70% of our communication is nonverbal. 70% is attitude. I mean, I ran up here, and I looked out and made eye contact. And some of you looked at me as if to say, that's the speaker. Well, he doesn't even look anything like the last speaker. No, he looks more like a basketball player to me, Harry. And I am. And I'm good. You know, when you're negative in life, you don't want to move. When you're down and out, you don't care how you transmit attitude. The challenge for you when you go back to the office, they will be watching you. This whole conference was a time to network, to educate, to refocus, to get our mission, our direction, and to recharge our battery. I challenge you to stay focused. I challenge you to stay positive and pick up your pace 25%. You know, every morning on the African continent, a gazelle wakes up, and it knows it must outrun the fastest lion or it will be killed. Every morning a lion wakes up, and it knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle or it will starve to death. It doesn't matter whether you're a lion or a gazelle. What matters is when the sun comes up, you got to be running.
There are a lot of things you'll see on this video, but there's one thing you won't see, and that's the research. That's the time I take to make sure I understand my audience. I want to make sure I customize my message to have the biggest impact. I use a very extensive questionnaire. I want to know what happens before I speak, what happens afterwards. Is there a theme? I also want to know what are their challenges. What's the size of the audience? Who's in the audience? Are spouses attending? I want to make sure I take my material and tailor it so that the audience can get the maximum amount of information from my message. I want to make sure you get the highest return on your investment. I look forward to making your next event the best ever. Dr. Charles Mayo is a Harvard psychologist. He stated years ago, 40% of your worries have already happened. 30% never will. 12% are about unfound health conditions, and 10% make up daily nothings. I've got people at Merck right now spending 92% of their day worrying for no good reason. Rule number 1, don't sweat the small stuff. Rule number 2, it's all small stuff. You get focused. This is your year for extraordinary growth. Does that make sense? And the only way you're going to grow is you got to change. You can't grow doing the same old things the same old way expecting a different result. You got to change. And when you change, the only thing that changes is you. And sometimes that changes everything. I was walking through the hotel lobby this morning. I'm just whistling, smiling. The bell captain looks at me and goes, "Why are you so happy?" I looked at him. I said, "I woke up." He looked kind of puzzled. He said, "You mean certain days you don't get up?" Any day above ground is a good day for me. If you can visualize a 5-year-old little boy swishing out to his mom's car, I jumped into the back seat. I was so looking forward to going to school. I was just jumping up and down. Any mom and dads in the room, you might remember that special day. My mom turned around. She didn't say a word. She just gave me a big old hug. That's the first moment in my life I realized it's okay to get excited. That was the first program that told me it's okay to have enthusiasm. You see, I may grow old, but I'm never going to let the kid in me die. I'm never going to let the kid die. Now, who's going to go first for Mrs. Peterson? Her eyes looked around that room several times. Her eyes finally locked into mine. And with a big old smile, she bent down and she said, "Would you go first for Mrs. Peterson? Come on, sweetie, you can do it. Stand up, turn around." I jumped up, I turned around and I said, Mama, and I'll never forget Nancy, the girl in the back of the room with the pigtails and the glasses. She jumped up and she said, he can't talk, he stutters, he's having difficulty, Miss Peterson, he needs some assistance. I'll never forget the little boy next to me, his name was Billy. He looked up and said, you're too tall. You're in the wrong room. I'd go home if I were you. I sat down almost as fast as I stood up, and only two things I wanted in my life at that moment. One, I wanted my mom more than anything in the world. Second thing I wanted to hear the other boys and girls say their name. But no one taught me to protect my ear gate. And I just kept repeating all those negative inputs. You're too tall, you can't talk, you're not good enough, you ought to go home. You see, when they went to recess, I talked myself into running home. And we lived about 2 miles away. I had never been that far by myself. But even to this day, I believe it's the fastest I've ever ran in my life. Running up on the porch, my mom was coming out of the house. I ran right into her arms. And if I close my eyes right now, I bet you I can still feel my mom's tight, bare hug. And I remember saying to my mom, Mom, I'm too tall. Mom, I'm not good enough, Mom. I don't fit in the school, Mom. They don't want me in the school. And my mom just squeezed me. And I'll never forget her words. She said, honey, Mommy just hung up for Miss Peterson. Mommy was coming to get you. Mama's got some good news. And as soon as she said good news, it changed my program. I said, Mama's got some good news? She said, Mama's proud of you because you tried. Honey, in life we're going to have challenges. We're not going to worry. We're going to stay focused. We're going to get you some help. We're going to work hard because Mama can already see it. Get a hold of this. Now you got to start seeing it because one day my little baby's going to stand tall. And one day my little boy is going to say his name as loud and as well as all the other boys and girls. You know, my mother told me this over 36 years ago. I think she was talking about today. I'm going to take a minute to finish something my mother told me one day I'd be able to do. My name is Keith Douglas Harrell. Thanks, Mom.
What makes KC so great is the fact that you're embracing change. You're going through a transformation, looking at your processes, understanding here's manufacturing, here's distribution. I got to continue to provide service after the sale. It's all about change. You show me a champion today who's not changing, I'll show you a champion who's in a rut. And the only difference between a rut and a grave are the dimensions. Are you with me? I normally start my presentation by asking one fundamental question. Which attitude did you bring? But nuh-uh. I was here at 8 o'clock. I saw the attitude coming in. I saw the spirit. You guys were just coming in. Oh, I'm happy to be in here. I'm happy. That's an attitude of a champion. You see, a champion knows you have to be on all the time. It's called 24/7. You can't drag in hoping to go up with a bad attitude. I know right now a lot of you spend a lot of time in your car. You're going through a lot of transformation, and I know change is impacting everybody, but change is the power to grow. Here's what I want you to do if you're not doing it right now. I want you to go back home, look in your glove box, and I want you to make sure you have the motivational tapes in your car. I want you to make sure you have the tapes in your car because the best way to program in to the brain positive things is when you're driving. Average commute time in America is 40 minutes. Certain parts of California is an hour and 15. We spend so much time in our car, we can get a 4-year education in 2 years if we put it on audio. I bump into a lot of people trying to win today, and they haven't realized this. Now, I'll throw this out here. The most powerful computer in the world is what? It's the brain. And if you want to be proactive, you want to be positive, you got to program in positive things to the brain. Somebody in this room, you're only 6 inches away from your greatest year ever. From this ear to the other ear. What I'm simply trying to say, if you walk out of here with your 4 cornerstones, if you walk out of here focused on the fact that we're going to win all seasons, if you walk out of here understanding the fact that I'm going to stay focused on my KPIs, you walk out of here understanding the fact that I know I control my destiny. Whatever your program in is what you get out, I guarantee you'll make a mark that can never be erased. Are you right? I got a phrase right now. Garbage in, garbage stays. Don't even let it in. If you're stressed out because of negative attitude, I read last week, the article in USA Today said go out and get a dog. Go buy a dog if you're stressed out. It said a dog is actually better for you than a spouse. I ain't going there right now. It said a spouse loves you so much that sometimes a spouse will criticize, and the worst thing you need if you're stressed is criticism. A dog will never criticize. How many people have a dog? That's probably the reason why you're a champion. How many people have seen a dog before? They said a dog will give you something that you won't give yourself. Who can tell me what it is? Unconditional love. No strings attached. I'm going to love you. Whether you're making your numbers or not, I'm going to love you. How many people have a dog? Stand up if you have one. Take a look at these people. If you don't have a dog, find out where